During garment construction process, there are many edges that need to be finished. Some edges are straight, like most of the hemlines, that can be self-folded unless planned different. Other edges in the garment are the curved ones, like those on the armhole or on the necklines. The armholes, if not finished with sleeves, and necklines, if not finished with collars, require some sort of finishing. Facing is a popular way to finish raw edges in a garment. They can be cut on straight grain, on cross grain, or on bias, as the requirement may be, depending on the area on which they are going to be applied. If the facing shows on the right side of the garment, like you see here, it can be called a decorative facing. What you see here is a bias facing used as a decorative facing, and what you see here at the neckline is a shaped facing simply used as a back neck finish. In this garment, again you see a decorative facing applied, as there is no facing on the inside. Entire facing is turning to the outside, and that is doing not only the primary job of finishing the neckline but also providing decoration to it. Here in this video, I will be showing you how to plan, cut and apply bias facing on a neckline curve. The sample size taken here is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, and I'm creating a replica of a neckline curve by taking 6 centimeters depth and 10 centimeters width and 0.5 centimeter as a seam allowance, the red dotted line that you see here. The sample size is 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. Fold half and mark the center. Mark the straight grain of fabric, and on the center line mark 6 centimeter depth for the neckline and 5 centimeter width, and make a smooth curve. Make sure this curve is about 90 degrees here so that you don't get a sharp wedge or a raised look here. Mark 0.5 centimeter of a seam allowance all around. Transfer the seam line using a tracing wheel and going all along. Mark wrong side on the side where you've marked the seam allowances, and mark right side on the side which is going to be the outer side. Facings can be cut in a straight grain to be applied on straight vertical areas. They may be cut on cross grain to be applied on cross grain areas, and they may be cut on bias, which is extensively used on all the curved areas. To cut a bias strip, the easiest way is to make a fabric square. I have taken 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters and fold this into half diagonally. Now this area is the true bias. You can press fold this area to get a line, or you can use a scale to mark this line, this corner to this corner. Cut it along these lines and mark the seam allowances of 0.5 and 0.5 on either side. Now we are dealing with a shape other than straight. We must learn a new concept here which will stabilize this shape while we are handling the garment component. In overhandling, we often lose this shape, and we can't afford to do that for necklines and armholes. So we stay stitch. We run a machine stitch on one single layer of fabric 1 millimeter inside the seam, so that when we are working, the neckline shape does not distort. It will stabilize it. That is why it is called stay stitching. With the right side of the sample and the right side of the facing strip, bias strip, facing each other, place the bias strip onto the neckline, matching the seam lines. Make sure the bias strip is not stretched and its seam line is matching. Don't worry about this wrinkle that appears on the bias over here. Make sure that your seam line matches and you don't stretch the bias. See, bias is capable of stretching, but we don't want to introduce any stretch in the bias right now. Now we can machine sew this. The stitching is over. You can see how it's curling up a little bit even though I have not stretched it. Clip deep into the seam, not cutting the seam line, deep into the seam allowance all along regularly. These slashes help us to stretch the seam allowance when it has to fold back on itself to the wider side. See how they're slashed up? Clip off all the extra threads and iron so that you get a clean edge here. The next is now to do the under machining. That means the facing and the two layers of the seam allowance are pushed to one side and a row of machining done 1 millimeter away from this fold. This will hold the 3 layers together and will make the neckline finish much sharp and smooth. Now we have to iron it from all sides like this so that the edge is now clean. Once the understitching is done, we iron it neatly so as to keep the entire facing only on the wrong side. It must not show on the right side. Iron it carefully so that entire facing, I'm doing it in 2 colors so that we can easily see how it has been folded. It should not be visible on the edges. You can iron the 0.5 inside and get a regular width of 1 centimeter. That is what was planned here, but you could do it with 0.75, 0.8 as well. The wider it is, the more difficult it becomes to handle. So a narrower one would be preferable, and definitely not more than 1 centimeter for a bias facing. It's better to have 1 millimeter or less than a millimeter of the face fabric showing onto this side than have the blue fabric pop out on this side if we don't iron it well. So make sure the ironing takes care of the facing fabric to remain totally on the wrong side. The bias facing is ready. All this will go away with ironing, and we have the little bit of hemming marks showing on the right side, but you can see that the facing is not popping out on the right side. And the beautiful faced neckline with a bias facing is ready with us. If you enjoyed this video and learned something from me, then do like, share and subscribe. And if you wish to receive future notifications of my upcoming videos, then do press the bell icon as well. Bye bye, and thank you for watching the video. I will be back soon with more videos on how to finish edges in garments.